Hello and welcome. Look, if the mere thought of medical statistics on your AKT GP exam makes your head spin, you are in exactly the right place. We're about to slice through all that complexity and build you a powerful toolkit with the essential calculations you absolutely have to know.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the absolute foundation. That's the 2x2 table. Then we'll use it to figure out how good a diagnostic test is, how well a treatment works, and even how reliable a study is. And to wrap it all up, we'll finish with a master sheet of all the key formulas for your revision. Okay, let's get into it. Pretty much everything we're going to talk about today starts right here with the simple 2x2 contingency table. Trust me, it is the bedrock for almost all the diagnostic stats you're going to face. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The source material is crystal clear on this. You need to commit this table to memory. It's not a friendly suggestion, it's a requirement for passing this exam, because you will almost certainly be asked to run the numbers using it. So let's break this thing down. Across the top, you've got the actual truth. Does the patient have the disease or not? And down the side, you've got your test result. Was it positive or negative? A true positive, or TP, is perfect. The test correctly spots the disease. A false positive, FP, is when the test gets it wrong and flags a healthy person. Now, a false negative, FN, that's the dangerous one, right? The test misses the disease entirely. And finally, a true negative, TN, is another win. The test correctly gives a healthy person the all clear. Simple as that.
All right, now that we've got our foundation set, let's actually use it. We're going to start by figuring out how good a diagnostic test really is, using two of the most important concepts out there, sensitivity and specificity.
First step is sensitivity. The formula is just the true positives divided by everyone who actually has the disease. So think of it as the true positive rate. If a person is sick, what's the chance this test will actually catch it? A super-sensitive test is fantastic for making sure you don't miss any cases. And on the flip side, you've got specificity. The formula here is the true negatives divided by everyone who does not have the disease. This is your true negative rate. So if a person is healthy, how good is the test at correctly telling them they're in the clear? A highly specific test is what you want for confidently ruling people out. So here's the bottom line. Sensitivity is all about correctly identifying the sick people. It's focused on that disease present column in our table. Specificity, on the other hand, is all about correctly clearing the healthy people. It's focused on the disease absent column. Getting that difference locked in your brain is absolutely vital when you're under exam pressure. Great, so we know how to evaluate a test. Let's switch gears from diagnosis to treatment. How do we actually measure if a new drug or an intervention is making a difference? Well, one of the most powerful ways to do that is with the number needed to treat, or NNT. The real power of the NNT is its beautiful simplicity. It boils everything down to one single, easy-to-understand number. So, for example, if a drug has an NNT of 10, it means you have to treat 10 people with that drug to prevent just one bad outcome, like one heart attack that would have happened otherwise. See? Super intuitive. Now, the calculation might look a little scary at first, but I promise it's a logical 4-step process. First, you find the rate of bad outcomes in the control group. Second, you find the rate in the group that got the treatment. Third, you find the difference between them. That's your absolute risk reduction. And finally, you just divide 1 by that number. That's it. Let's just zoom in on that third step for a second. The absolute risk reduction, the ARR, is the real-world impact that the treatment is having. So if 10% of the placebo group had a heart attack, but only 2% of the treated group did, the ARR is a simple 8%. It's the key ingredient we need to get our NNT.
And here is a massive, massive exam tip. Listen up. You can't treat 9.2 people, right? So if your calculation spits out an NNT of, say, 9.2, you always have to round it up to the next whole number, in this case, 10. It is such a small detail, but it's where so many people lose easy marks. Don't let that be you.
So far, we've looked at tests and we've looked at treatments. But what about the studies themselves? How do we know if a clinical trial was even designed well enough to find a result in the first place? Well, this is where the whole concept of statistical power comes into play. Okay, in plain English, power is just a study's ability to actually find a real effect if one truly exists. A study with low power might say a drug doesn't work, but not because it's useless. It could be because the study was just too weak to detect the effect. It's kind of like using a blurry camera to look for a tiny needle in a haystack. You're probably going to miss it. For the AKT exam, you need to know one key number here.
The accepted minimum standard for power in most medical studies is 80%, or 0.80. This means researchers are okay with a 20% chance of missing a real effect. So what does this mean for you? If you see a study with power below 80%, you should be pretty skeptical of its negative findings.
So what drives a study's power? It really comes down to three main things. The biggest one, by far, is sample size. More people means more power. Simple. Second is the effect size. Obviously, it's easier to find a massive effect than a tiny, subtle one. And finally, the significance level, also called alpha, plays a role too.
Woo! We have covered a lot of ground. So, to pull this all together for you, we've created a final master sheet. This is the slide you're going to want to screenshot or scribble down for that last-minute revision right before the exam. And here it is, all in one place. Sensitivity, true positives over all the sick folks. Specificity, true negatives over all the healthy folks. NNT, that's just 1 divided by the absolute risk reduction. And power, 1 minus beta, which is just the probability of that type 2 error. All the core ideas we just covered right here for you.
So, there you have it. The toolkit is built. But remember, these aren't just abstract formulas for an exam. These are the fundamental tools for practicing real evidence-based medicine. The real question isn't just, can you pass the test, but how are you going to use these tools to critically appraise the next study you read or the next test you order for a patient? Because that really is what this is all about.